A gorgeous woman with a stunning back view invited the protagonist out to dinner. But the moment she turned around, her face was something straight out of a nightmare. This was a bizarre world where every living thing was obsessed with evolution. To hunt swarms of bees, frogs had evolved thick, heavy skin, and tongues even longer and stronger than a chameleon's. To become better hunters, the birds in the forest had even evolved 2 different heads, one above the other. As for the protagonist, he had transmigrated into a blob of slime mold. He might have been at the very bottom of the food chain, but he was never a picky eater. Fallen trees and weeds by the roadside could all become his food. Right now, he had his eyes locked on a strange mushroom not too far away. A human would probably keel over from eating something like that, but as slime mold, his instincts were screaming that it was delicious. Fun slime mold fact. Even though slime mold moves painfully slowly, scientists discovered through maze experiments that it can always find the fastest route to its target, no matter how complicated the maze is. Even crazier, in an experiment simulating the Tokyo subway system, engineers spent 10 years designing the network, while slime mold recreated a more efficient version in just 26 hours. So it did not take him long to figure out the fastest route. Sure, he was still a little slow, but he eventually made it all the way to his sweetheart. He let out a sneaky little chuckle and got ready to devour the innocent little mushroom. He was even thinking to himself, "We have been e-dating for so long, and now we are finally meeting in real life." In a sweet voice, Miss Mushroom asked, "Are you tough guy Bang Bang?" The protagonist flashed a confident grin. That is right, the one and only. What he did not expect was that Miss Mushroom had just pulled an online scam on him. System notification, toxin detected. Nutrients are being consumed rapidly. Please detoxify immediately. At that moment, his HP started dropping like crazy. To save his own life, he immediately chose to cut off part of himself and survive, dropping his maximum HP from 35 to 17. Even so, his decomposition skill still worked. He cursed under his breath. "Fine, I will let you off for now. Once this slime gets back to camp and regroups, I'm coming back for round 2. With that, he started decomposing wood to recover HP. 15 minutes later, the slime mold was back at full health, and his maximum HP had returned to 35. He also figured out a workable strategy. Nibble away at the mushroom a little at a time, disconnect before the poison fully kicked in, then go decompose dead wood to heal, and repeat the cycle. He called it the mountain moving plan. At last, on his 8th attempt, he finally managed to bring that poisonous switch down. And with that, he gained a new stat, Poison Resistance Level 1. From the look of it, this was an attribute that could keep leveling up. Still, the protagonist was pretty disappointed. He had been hoping that eating Miss Mushroom would give him a huge chunk of EXP and push him straight to the next level. Luckily, this place was damp, and where there was moisture, there were mushrooms everywhere. Leveling up was only a matter of time. After grinding away for a full hour, he not only raised his poison resistance to level 2, but also reached level 5. The downside was that for the next 24 hours, mushrooms would no longer grant him any EXP. Even so, he had no intention of wasting those mushrooms. He packed every last one of them away as emergency rations, and if things got bad enough, they could even be used to protect himself. It was basically the same principle as crabs in nature using sea anemones to drive off octopuses. Suddenly, a series of frantic wing beats came from above. A swarm of vicious carnivorous wasps had appeared, just as the protagonist was silently praying they would not notice him. A long tongue suddenly shot up from the ground into the air and snapped up one of the wasps in a single gulp. That bold move was basically a declaration of war against the entire swarm. Yet the frog showed absolutely no fear in the face of them. The wasps quickly went berserk and launched a furious assault. But no matter how hard they attacked, they simply could not break through the frog's defense. In the end, the frog seized the perfect opening and struck back, swallowing every last one of them whole. But just when the protagonist thought it was finally over, a massive blood-soaked maw came lunging straight at the frog. It was a bizarre bird with 2 different heads. Then, without warning, the strange bird's eyes narrowed and locked directly onto him, just as he resigned himself to death and gave up struggling. The creature instead lifted its head high, its eyes filled with contempt and disdain, and it gave a single flap with those nearly featherless wings. And the terrifying gust instantly ripped 30 HP off the protagonist. At the same time, the strange bird vanished into the darkness. Under the moonlight, the forest looked beautiful and eerily quiet, with only the occasional sound of insects in the distance. But the protagonist could do nothing except hide inside a pile of poisonous mushrooms and tremble. Because after observing this place for a while, he had already confirmed one brutal fact. Right now, he was at the absolute bottom of the food chain. Thankfully, being at the very bottom was weirdly a blessing in disguise. The gap in the food chain was just too huge, so he was not even worth putting on that monsters menu. He took a careful look at his current status panel, and the joy of gaining 4 levels in a single night instantly vanished. The protagonist honestly had no idea how a slime mold like him was supposed to survive in the days ahead, let alone rise up and become stronger. The more he thought about it, the more exhausted he felt. At that point, he could only hope that once he fell asleep, he would wake up and find that all of this had just been a dream. But then, a drop of acid slowly slid down from the poisonous mushroom above his head, and his HP immediately took a massive hit. The intense burning pain jolted him awake on the spot, and at the same time, he unlocked a new skill, Burst. By rapidly stimulating the cytoplasm inside his body and forcing it to surge in one direction all at once, he could generate a powerful burst of momentum. Current cooldown, once every 5 minutes. When he returned to the ground and took a closer look, he discovered that the culprit was actually a snail. But this snail was nothing like the ones he remembered because it came with its own acid skill. It could dissolve mushrooms and toxins together to safely finish eating them. Seeing that, the protagonist exploded in anger. "You rotten snail? Sneaking off with my mushrooms without permission was bad enough. But you even dripped your saliva on my face and nearly ruined my looks. That is unforgivable." In response to his shouting, the snail merely let out 2 soft chirps. Hearing that, the protagonist assumed it was deliberately acting pitiful and immediately told it to cut the act. But to his surprise, the snail started trembling in fear and gave another 2 helpless little chirps. Looking at it like that, the protagonist actually began to feel a little sympathy. After all, they were both miserable little creatures struggling just to get something to eat. Was he maybe being a little too harsh? Thinking it over, he finally decided to let it go. There are mushrooms everywhere anyway. Sharing a little will not kill me. Go ahead and eat. And the snail really did lower its head again and start slurping away. Meanwhile, the protagonist's imagination was already running wild. After today, he and the snail would officially become teammates, level up together, unlock advanced classes together, and eventually join forces to defeat the Demon King. Yep, if you wanted to get strong in another world, companions were absolutely essential. Once the fantasy ended, he moved over beside the snail and formally invited it to join his party. The snail tilted its head and gave him a curious look, and suddenly lunged down and bit at him hard. Only then did the protagonist truly understand the law of this forest. In this world of monsters, nobody cared about feelings. There was only eating and being eaten. Even worse, although they were both low-level monsters, the snail was clearly faster and stronger than him. He had planned to quietly slip away while it was busy eating, but the moment the snail realized this blob of slime mold was edible and posed no threat, it abandoned the mushrooms and came rushing straight after him. Seeing that, the protagonist dumped all of his remaining skill points into Pulse without hesitation, planning to go all out and finally shake the snail off for good. Just 1 minute passed, then another 3 minutes went by. The snail seemed to realize it too. It could not catch him through speed alone, but at the same time, he could not shake it either. All of a sudden, its neck began to writhe violently, and it actually fired a large amount of acid like a weapon. The result was brutal. He got hit only once, and his HP instantly dropped by 27 points. At the same time, he made an unexpected discovery. His consciousness would automatically remain in the larger half of his body. But right now was clearly not the time to stop and study that issue. The snail let out a furious series of chirping roars at him, then slammed its head down and began crazily devouring his body. As the saying went, revenge was never too late for a mushroom. Taking advantage of that brief moment, the male lead started wriggling like mad, desperate to get away from there as fast as possible. But to his surprise, after the snail had already eaten half his body, it seemed to have developed quite a taste for him and clearly had no intention of letting him off so easily. Then an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. He wrapped one of his tendrils tightly around a poisonous mushroom, immediately activated his new skill, Burst, and shoved it straight into the giant mouth lunging at him. The result was instant. In the span of a heartbeat, the snail was poisoned on the spot. It struggled in agony for a moment, then collapsed heavily right in front of him. At the same time, he leveled up to level 6 and gained 0.6 skill enhancement points. Relief washed over him at once. So it worked. Just like he had guessed, that thing had all those sharp teeth, yet still insisted on melting mushrooms with acid before eating them. That could only mean one thing. It had no poison resistance of its own. The thought made him burst into laughter. No matter what, this little slime had finally defeated his first monster since arriving in this other world. The only question now was what kind of special surprise would come from decomposing a monster. The next second, he threw up. Somehow, as a slime, he had actually thrown up. Good grief, this thing tasted awful. It was salty, sour, and had the texture of thick mucus. It was disgusting beyond belief. But when he looked at the system prompt, he still could not help feeling unwilling to let it go. After all, this victory had been bought with his life on the line. After carefully thinking back on everything that had happened the day before, he knew one thing for sure. He had to become stronger as quickly as possible. Picky eating, flavor, preferences, none of that mattered anymore. Reality would not allow him to be choosy. For the next full 10 minutes, while the protagonist fought through an unbearable wave of nausea, he finally finished decomposing the snail completely. His level jumped all the way to level 7, and his condition fully recovered to its peak. He studied the system panel carefully. Remaining skill enhancement points, 1.4. Upgradable skills, decomposition level 6, pulse level 4, poison resistance level 3, burst level 1. He thought it through again. Decomposition meant eating. Pulse meant running fast. Poison resistance meant taking hits better. first meant accelerating his escape. In the end, he could only helplessly realize that he did not even have a single true attack skill. But complaining was useless. He was just a slime, after all. Besides, with his current strength, even if he did have an attack skill, he still would not dare provoke those powerful monsters. In the end, that was the only way he could comfort himself. After thinking it over, he put all of his skill points into Pulse, because at the very least, it could make him a little faster at running for his life. Then the slime tested it himself, and found that he could move about 20 centimeters in 1 second. Converted into speed, that came out to only around 0.78 kilometers per hour. He was still ridiculously weak. Time passed quickly, and 1 week later, he had fully embraced the art of lying low. Life during that week had been calm enough, but his savings were nearly wiped out, and in the end, they were only enough to raise him by 2 more levels. Still, he had basically figured out all the core traits of this slime body. It was time to find a new base. After making up his mind, he decided to stock up properly one last time before setting out. Exploration skill. By flattening his body and spreading it into countless thin strands, he could search multiple directions at once. The higher his HP, the more cytoplasm he had inside him, and the wider the area he could extend into. Before long, he had already spread his body rapidly in every direction. The system immediately sent a notification. Successfully captured white mushrooms, X3, stored inside the body. The system sent another notification. Successfully captured little grass mushrooms, X6, stored inside the body. After becoming more skilled at controlling his body, he was now able to store items inside himself, or even explore and decompose at the same time, greatly increasing the success rate of decomposition. Just as the protagonist successfully raised his poison resistance to level 4, the system suddenly gave him another alert. Target cannot be decomposed. A sharp burst of pain hit him right after that, and his HP instantly dropped by 9. He quickly glanced at the tendril that had been melted away and immediately knew exactly who he had run into again. Another wave of acid came rushing at him, and just as he was still feeling a little proud of how fast he had become, he realized the snail was no slouch either. It looked like there were real differences between individuals of the same species. Too bad for it. He already knew this species' weakness, so he simply chose to trade damage for damage. And in the end, this snail was also taken down by a poisonous mushroom counterkill. What came next was the part the protagonist hated the most, decomposition. But the rewards from decomposing monsters and mushrooms were just too good to turn down. However, just as he was getting ready to move on, a faint rustling sound came from the grass ahead. When he spotted the 2 long antennae, he thought another snail had shown up, but what crawled out was actually a thick blade-legged centipede, easily 4 or 5 body lengths taller than him. Realizing things were bad, the protagonist immediately tried to knock it down with a poisonous mushroom, only to watch the mushroom get sliced clean in half in an instant. Then the creature unleashed its signature move, 100-leg strangle. That was when he suddenly realized something. Oh, so not everything out here could bully him so easily after all. As a slime, he was naturally completely immune to bladed attacks. Once he figured that out, he quickly locked onto the kind of prey he was best suited to hunt. Sadly, he still could not reach those wasps flying overhead, or they would have made a pretty tasty meal. Even so, by taking advantage of that trait, he quickly pushed his level all the way up to 13, and all his skills improved noticeably. But just as the male lead started fantasizing about snowballing like this forever and eventually climbing all the way to the top of the food chain, a pond suddenly came into view. Seeing it, he immediately decided to explore the water. After all, water was the source of life, so there had to be plenty of resources hidden in there. But the moment he lowered part of his body into the water, his body began swelling rapidly. It turned out that, as a single-celled organism, soaking in fresh water caused his body to bloat. In simple terms, it was an osmotic pressure issue. Realizing that, he had no choice but to give up on his underwater exploration plan for now. Then, all of a sudden, a giant crab emerged from the water. He carefully checked its shape and appearance several times, and memories of the delicious crab meat from his previous life instantly surfaced in his mind. After eating bugs for so long, he thought, I can finally treat myself to a real meal. With that thought, he immediately sent the crab a very friendly request for friendship. The crab, however, was not so easy to fool. Instead, it climbed onto a stone pillar in the middle of the pond, all while bubbles kept gurgling out of its mouth. Seeing that, the protagonist decided not to waste any more time here. There would always be a way to deal with that crab, like decomposing poisonous mushrooms in a liquid and dumping the juice into the pond. But to his surprise, the crab attacked first. Its bubble water gun had absurdly high pressure, and a single shot blasted a hole straight through his body, costing him 25 HP on the spot. What followed was a dense barrage of non-stop fire. Luckily, there was a tree not too far away. Otherwise, he would have been finished right there. Just as he was thinking about staying patient and seeing who could outlast the other, the crab suddenly jumped back into the water, then immediately charged onto land to continue hunting him down. And the movement speed of those 8 legs was obviously ridiculous, way faster than either him or the snail. Realizing how bad things were, the male lead immediately scrambled up the tree, hoping to use its height to finally widen the gap between himself and the crab. But before he even reached halfway up, a thick-bodied giant spider blocked his path. Even then, he did not panic. In his eyes, bugs were never that different from a delicious meal. 1 second later, however, Lord Spider taught him exactly how to be a fungus all over again. Feeling part of the top of his body get sliced clean off, he finally realized that he was not immune to every kind of bladed attack after all. Spider Monster, level skill display, swordsmanship level 8. Right then, another water shot suddenly slammed into him and shaved off 17 HP. The slime hurriedly glanced behind him, and his heart sank at once. This is bad. Spider in front, crab in back. This time, his luck had officially hit rock bottom. Still, this was not the first time he had found himself trapped in a hopeless situation. The next second, another water blast came roaring at him, but this time, he used the unique properties of his body to dodge nimbly and make the shot hit the spider monster in front instead. One of the spider's legs was blown clean off on the spot. The spider glared furiously at its injury, and immediately turned and charged straight at the crab. First, it fired out spider silk and quickly restrained the crab. It tried to finish things in one strike with spider limb slash. But the hardness of the crab's shell was far beyond expectations. It tanked the entire combo without taking any damage at all. In the fierce battle that followed, neither the spider nor the crab could bring the other down. The crab's claws were huge and powerful, and with that absurdly tough shell, the spider could not break its defense at all. The spider, on the other hand, used speed far beyond the crab's to dance around it with incredible agility. It could not break the crab's defense either, but it did have incredibly sticky silk. Just when the spider thought it had finally locked down the crab, the bubbles in the crab's mouth started multiplying like crazy. Before long, its entire mouth was packed full. In the next instant, a massive burst of force exploded out, and the crab used its water gun to unleash a wild, indiscriminate barrage. The spider had terrible luck and was cut straight into 3 pieces by the water blast. As for the protagonist, his luck was only slightly better. He had merely brushed past death by the narrowest margin. In the end, the crab had almost completely drained the water inside its own body, but the spider's silk still held it tightly in place. Seeing that, he carefully studied the battlefield and slowly wriggled his way around to the crab's side. Once he confirmed that the crab was truly spent, he could not help mocking it in his head. You kept firing everywhere, and now look at you. Completely dried out. But then another problem hit him. How exactly was he supposed to finish this thing off? Going for its mouth would basically be walking straight into its jaws. Using a poisonous mushroom would not work either, because if it kept its mouth shut, he had no way of forcing it open. But if he did not kill it now, things would only get worse once it recovered. Then his eyes landed on a rock nearby. He immediately tried to store it inside his slime space, only for the system to tell him there was not enough room. That was when he realized the size of his storage space was tied to his own HP, and after that battle, he had already lost at least half his life. On top of that, the rock itself was simply too large, so he emptied out his storage space completely. Even after he managed to store the rock, the weight of what he carried still affected his movement speed all the same. A few more minutes passed, and under the crab's horrified gaze, the protagonist finally leaped down. The crab still tried to struggle desperately, but it was already running on fumes. Even the power of his water gun was nowhere near what it had been before. With a heavy thud, the rock slammed down, and he finally killed the crab, becoming the sole winner of that chaotic battle. His level rose from 13 to 14, and he gained 0.5 skill enhancement points. And for the first time since arriving in this world, he finally got to eat something that actually tasted normal. Crab leg meat coated in crab roe exploded with ridiculous flavor in a single bite. Compared to the rotten cookie taste of wood, the mucus-like snail, and all those horribly flavored bugs, this was pure heaven. After a bout of absolutely shameless feasting, his condition finally returned to full. And now, it was finally time to get down to business. The protagonist began forcing his body to compress with all his strength. And just as it neared its limit, a puddle of liquid was squeezed out from behind him. Originally, he had been trying to copy the crab by forcing the moisture inside his body out as a form of attack. But because he had no mouth, he could neither control the exit point nor produce any real power. And something suddenly clicked in his mind, and he tried using burst as a support mechanism. This time, he actually succeeded in firing at range, and burst evolved into cytoplasm shot. By instantly mobilizing the cytoplasm inside his body, the skill generated powerful thrust and launched that cytoplasm out of his body as a projectile. On top of that, it was not affected by burst's 5-minute cooldown and could be used freely, though the price was obvious. Every shot consumed his own HP. At this point, he had more or less figured out how his skills worked. As a slime, he had no magic. The cytoplasm inside his body was the very fuel of his battles. Every skill he possessed could only be developed around the natural traits of slime, which meant he was probably destined to stay far away from flashy magic forever. That was a little depressing, sure, but for now the real path forward was obvious. Decompose more, absorb more, and keep growing his body. Then a bold thought suddenly struck him. If eating things made his body grow, what would happen if he ate his own body? It did not take long for him to find a chunk of himself that had been cut off by the spider monster earlier. Looking at that lump, even he froze for a second. Had that much really been sliced off just now? With that thought in mind, he immediately began recovering it. In the next instant, waves of unfamiliar memories surged into his body. It turned out that the parts of his body he split off did not die right away. Instead, they could keep decomposing things on instinct, and once he recovered them, he would gain all the EXP and HP they had accumulated. The moment the protagonist realized that, he was thrilled. If he could really split his body into multiple pieces and send them all out to work, then recover them later, would that not basically turn one mouth into countless mouths? If that was true, then his leveling efficiency would skyrocket. Once that thought hit him, he immediately put into action. But he quickly discovered one limitation. If a split body's HP dropped below 30, it would enter a self-eating state and start consuming itself just to stay alive. His maximum HP had now reached 198. In theory, he could split off? No, that was not right. As long as he had enough food, he could create as many split bodies as he wanted. So he immediately created one split body with 30 HP, and when he watched it slowly move forward without entering the self-eating state, he knew the method really worked. After that, he created several more split bodies, sending each one off to decompose different targets. Humming happily to himself, he arranged every split body where it needed to go, then finished decomposing the remaining spider meat and restored himself to peak condition. After all, when you went hunting, survival always came first. As the male lead became more familiar with the properties of his slime body, he started feeling like he had become ridiculously strong. Ordinary piercing attacks were ineffective. Ordinary slashing attacks were ineffective. As for advanced slashing attacks, he could more or less count himself resistant to those two. In other words, even fierce physical attacks were finding it hard to pose a truly fatal threat to him. The only thing he still worried about now was magic attacks. But up to this point, he had not run into any at all. That made him wonder whether his world was just too small so far, or whether this so-called other world was basically just an upgraded version of the animal kingdom. After that, he started using his own body as bait to fish for crabs, and ended up hooking 5 of them in one go. Then, by using the terrain around a large tree to his advantage, he pulled off a clean 5-kill streak. His level rose smoothly to 15. Once his condition was fully restored, it was naturally time for shooting practice. After 2 full days of focused training, the protagonist had already raised Cytoplasm's shot to level 6. At full condition, he could now fire 30 shots in a row. The only issue was that the power still felt lacking, so figuring out how to make his shots hit harder became his newest headache. After thinking it through, he decided to spice up the move a little. If he wrapped a poisonous mushroom into the shot, he could remotely poison the target. By the same logic, if he wrapped a stone into the projectile, he could increase the physical damage as well. Looking at it that way, he really was a genius. Then suddenly, a cooing sound came from a nearby tree hollow. He was immediately confused. A bird? But why was it glowing? A firefly? Curious, he decided to take a closer look and see what it really was. Before long, a half-transparent owl with a faint glow all over its body entered his sight. In that instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. So there was at last. A magical monster had finally appeared. Yet the owl did not choose to chase him at all, because it was actually just a magic skill, shared vision. At that same moment, a girl far away was using shared vision to observe everything on this side. The man beside her asked what she had found, and she casually replied, "Nothing much. Just a slightly strange little monster." But the hooded man behind them frowned, his tone turning suspicious. Something is wrong. We have not run into a single high-level monster this whole way. Hearing that, the girl lightly patted the mount beneath her. "Little Steelback, sniff more carefully and lead us to the way out." At the same time, the blonde man beside them lowered his voice and said, "We cannot even reach the guild master through magic communication. It feels like this whole place has been completely sealed off." Compared to those 3 strolling around so casually, the male lead was practically running for his life. He chose the opposite side of the pond as his temporary safe zone. Then he threw himself forward with everything he had, using momentum, and with the help of Cytoplasm's shot, he actually pulled off a second jump in midair. By the time it was over, he had burned through a full 80 HP, and after several more minutes of frantic running, he finally stopped in a place that he believed was safe enough. The protagonist could not help muttering to himself, "That seriously scared the fungus out of me. Better chew on a branch and calm down." Sure, he might count as strong among low-level monsters of the same tier now, but if he ran into something even 1 tier above him, he would probably still get erased in an instant. Then suddenly, a terrifying pressure crashed down from behind him, and for a second, he thought he had already been caught. The sheer oppression of it was even worse than that snake stork monster. Just what kind of existence was that owl? But as his gaze slowly shifted behind him, a gigantic claw had fallen into the middle of the forest without warning. He carefully inched his way toward it, his voice trembling a little as he stared. A hand? Wait, is that a finger? Could this actually be the legendary golden finger that belonged to him alone? His instinct screamed that if he could decompose and absorb this mysterious finger from some high-level magical beast, he would not just leap across several power gaps in one shot. He might even evolve because of it. Thinking that, he immediately tried to decompose the monster finger. But the moment he started, a violent wave of agony ripped through his cells. System notification. Decomposition failed. System notification. Skill level too low or target level gap too large. System notification. Protected target triggered. System notification. Cells are suffering backlash. Right after that, his HP began plummeting like crazy. But thankfully, by now he had plenty of experience when it came to cutting off part of himself to survive. And that was the only reason he barely managed to keep himself alive. However, while he was desperately decomposing wood to recover HP, the ground suddenly began to shake violently. The earth centered around that terrifying finger collapsed on the spot and rapidly kept spreading outward. The protagonist panicked and fled once again using cytoplasm shot, only to turn back and see that the giant crater behind him was slowly healing on its own. That sight made his entire body shiver from the inside out, and the outside world suddenly felt far more terrifying than ever, forcing him to admit the truth to himself. The farther out he went, the smaller he felt. He could not afford to get arrogant anymore. Hiding, decomposing, and quietly growing stronger was his only path for now. Yet beneath the ground, far beyond his sight, that finger was being slowly wrapped up by something soft, something that looked disturbingly like the inside of a mouth. And then rows upon rows of dense teeth slammed shut and crushed the finger to pieces. The male lead figured he had most likely moved far enough away from the owl. So he decided to set up a temporary base here and return tomorrow to retrieve his split bodies. With that decided, he immediately began decomposing the surrounding trees, making the entrance as small as possible first, then widening the interior from the inside. That way, any slightly larger monster would be unable to squeeze in. Once the plan was clear, he got right to work again. After putting a lot of care into the design, he even planted glow mushrooms with weak poison inside the cave. And at last, the temporary little shelter that was both safe and cozy was complete. His design logic was simple enough. The structure was divided into a real room and a fake room. But just as he was about to enjoy a brief moment of peace, an endless buzzing noise started drilling into his nerves. Annoyed, he poked his head out, ready to protest this public disturbance, only to discover that a massive swarm of wasps had suddenly gathered outside. At once, a brilliant idea rose in his mind. Free EXP delivered right to his doorstep was not something he would ever waste. In the next second, one of the wasps was instantly killed by him. After that, he even stuck his head out and greeted them with a cheerful smile. "Hello there, everyone." Exactly as expected, the moment the swarm noticed him, they all rushed madly into the tree hollow in one giant wave. What they did not know was that the male lead was basically a lump of living sticky bug glue at this point. So once those wasps flew into the tree hollow, they were practically throwing themselves at him for free. Even so, he did not decompose all of them. He deliberately let two go so they could lead him back. Not long after, near the swarm's territory, he successfully tracked down the location of the hive by following those two released wasps. But to his surprise, the two wasps suddenly performed a strange motion, and in the blink of an eye, a massive swarm appeared before him like a living cloud. At first, he had naively assumed these things were just walking EXP deliveries, but the number of wasps was so overwhelming that the surrounding temperature shot upward, causing his cells to start dying off. In a panic, he immediately fired a cytoplasm shot and blasted a gap through the swarm, only for the projectile to be blocked by a shield the very next second, a beeswax shield. And then the wasp behind it swung that shield and smacked him hard. While he hurriedly adjusted his body and tried to think of a way out, one of the wasps suddenly yanked out its stinger, then waved it in the air and rapidly formed a small magic circle. Magic activated, swarm summoned. In the very next instant, another dense wave of wasps completely surrounded him again. Only then did he truly understand the types within this swarm. Wasp workers, wasp guards, and wasp mages, monsters that could evolve and also use magic. At a single command from the wasp mage, the entire swarm launched a furious, all-out assault against him. Cytoplasm shot was limited by his own HP, but he had left most of his body back on the big tree. That let him keep regenerating while continuing to fire on the swarm. The swarm was not stupid either. Once they saw how fierce his attacks were, they immediately switched tactics and sent the wasp guards to the front. And his ordinary cytoplasm shots simply could not break their defense. He had wanted to use stones to strengthen the attack, but by now there was only one stone left in his storage. Still, these wasps might have intelligence, but they clearly had zero experience dealing with a creature like him. They actually flew in close, trying to stab him to death. To the protagonist, that was basically a gift, because while he was out of ammo, that reckless move instantly gave him 4 wasp lances and 1 wasp stinger. If his storage had not been so limited, he could have taken even more. In the next second, an enhanced cytoplasm shot blasted out and punched straight through both the beeswax shield and the wasp guard behind it. The wasp mage panicked at once and hurriedly ordered a retreat, but he just let out a cold snort. Retreat? So now you finally know how dangerous this fungus is? But in the very next moment, the wasp mage raised its stinger again. A glob of honey slowly began to gather in the air, and just as he was staring at it with greedy interest, a strand of flame suddenly ignited the honey, Beginner Magic, Sparkcast. That single hit alone sent his HP crashing down by 70. Seeing that the attack worked, the Wasp Mage immediately sped up its spellcasting. He could keep decomposing wood to heal, but fire magic was a direct hard counter to him, and the honey also had a splash effect. There was no way he could win this fight. If he wanted to survive, he had to run. However, just when a male lead finally found an opening and prepared to launch a sneak attack, the Wasp Mage, now fully familiar with all his attack patterns after the earlier exchange, had two Wasp Guards reinforce themselves with magic and block the strike together. In the end, his attack still failed to penetrate the double-layered beeswax shield. Seeing that, he felt like 10,000 herbivores were stampeding through his head. They can even buff each other? That is completely unfair. To make matters worse, the Wasp Mage had absolutely no sense of sportsmanship and immediately cast Swarm Summon again. Soon, a group of round-bellied wasps glowing with a faint light slowly crawled out of the hive, self-destruct wasps. And, just like their name suggested, what they did next was completely insane. They flew straight at him and detonated themselves without a shred of hesitation. The wasp saw that he still had not died and had only crashed awkwardly onto a tree branch. So the Wasp Mage immediately gave another order. Two wasp workers rushed forward without hesitation and sawed straight through the branch. Right after that, countless self-destruct wasps swarmed in and surrounded him all over again. At the same time, the Wasp Mage rapidly cast Beginner Magic, Sparkcast, once more. In the next instant, those two deadly attacks came crashing down on him together, determined to blast him into dust for good. But when the thick smoke finally began to clear, the Wasp Mage carefully examined the charred lump on the ground. It still did not feel safe and immediately ordered the Wasp Guards to keep a tight watch on the surroundings. Then, all of a sudden, fear flashed across its face. By that point, the Protagonist had already quietly slipped beneath the hive. With only those scattered wasp workers left nearby, there was no way they could stop him anymore. The truth was that from the very beginning, while this little fungus had been extending his body into the tree trunk to decompose and replenish himself, he had also been secretly stretching deeper and deeper, carving out a hidden passage toward their nest. Then, when the swarm cornered him behind the trunk, he burned most of his HP to create a split body and use it as bait. Sure enough, the swarm focused all their fire on that split body, while he slipped into the tunnel and quietly transferred himself over to the hive. The moment he lightly touched the hive, he activated his exploration skill without hesitation, and within a single instant, he had already completed his infiltration of the hive's entire interior. The food storage chambers, the warm nursery where the larvae were being raised, the honey reserves packed to the brim, and finally, inside a large open chamber, he found the location of the hive's queen, the queen wasp. By the time the swarm rushed back, it was already too late. The male lead had successfully taken their queen. Do not move. Your queen is in my hands now. But to his surprise, the queen wasp was not afraid in the slightest and directly issued an order to the swarm instead. The moment the Wasp Mage heard the queen's command, it also immediately gave the order to attack. Seeing that, his eyes turned cold, and he understood at once that there was no room left for negotiation. In the next instant, he smashed the queen wasp's head into a spray of shredded flesh. At the exact same moment, every single unit in the swarm reacted as if struck by lightning. They all dropped to the ground and began convulsing uncontrollably. Endless EXP notifications flooded his vision, and his level jumped from 15 straight to 17. He had originally thought he might be able to reason with them somehow, but apparently even with a social hierarchy, low-level monsters still followed instinct above all else. The blackness of night slowly spread across the forest once again. After a long stretch of non-stop decomposition, he finally reached the yield cap for decomposing wasps. For the next 24 hours, he would gain no further EXP from them, and any HP above his maximum would be cleared away after 1 hour. The system panel displayed everything clearly. Current species, slime level 21. Achievement obtained, weak creature. Core trait, decomposer. HP, 918/802 plus 116. Remaining skill enhancement points, 0.3. Decomposition, level 7. Pulse max, poison resistance, level 7. Cytoplasm, shot level 6. Central command, level 2. He carefully studied his current status panel, and the more he looked, the happier he became. This round of decomposition had not only boosted his poison resistance by a lot, but had also unexpectedly given him a new skill, Central Command. Of course, this little fungus immediately tried tossing one skill point into it just to see what would happen, but absolutely nothing changed, which made him wonder if the reason was simple. Maybe he just did not have any subordinates to command yet. The thought had barely crossed his mind before a failure notification popped up, informing him that the upgrade had failed. That was when he figured out another rule. From now on, decomposition could no longer be leveled up with skill points and could only grow through proficiency. He had originally wanted to max it out on purpose, so he could specialize in cleaning up corpses, but apparently racial skills could not be upgraded that way. Since that option was gone, the only thing left to do was max out Pulse first. Still, the haul from this battle was massive. As his HP increased, the slime storage space inside his body had expanded as well. and the honey in front of him was treasure too. Just decomposing a single chunk of it could restore a full 400 HP. Thinking that, the male lead quietly looked over the field of corpses in front of him and could not help replaying his path of predation in his mind. It had started with the snail counter kill. From that moment on, he had truly stepped onto the road of a predator. Bugs, spiders, crabs, and now this entire hive of wasps. The more he thought about it, the more he felt like some rising villain. Still, he quickly adjusted his mindset again. Maybe it was because the foundation of his thinking was still human that he kept feeling a trace of guilt. But in a world like this, he had no real choice anymore. Here, if you were not the hunter, then you were the prey. The strong devoured the weak, the fittest survived, and that was the most basic law of nature. If you want to live in this other world, then hunting and decomposing were not optional. They were the only path left to him. Material reality shaped thought. So before anything else, survival came first. Once he thought it through that way, excitement surged through the protagonist again. Because next up, he was finally going to recover the split bodies he had sent out that morning. And honestly, he was dying to know what kind of surprise they might bring back. Then, while traveling, he was suddenly drawn to a bright fire in the distance. His first thought was almost instantly of humans. After all, open flame was usually one of the clearest signs of human activity. Sure enough, there really were humans near the fire. 3 of them were sitting there talking. Cole was lying on the ground as he asked, "Nia, are you really not worried those quills will poke you if you lean against that pig?" Nia gently stroked the fur of her mount and replied, "It is fine. When he is relaxed, little steelback bristles are actually pretty soft. You worked hard today. Tomorrow, I will still be counting on you to help us find a way out." Off to the side, Hawk spoke with obvious guilt in his voice. "We came here to look for the guild master, and in the end we wound up getting lost ourselves. As the team leader, I cannot avoid the blame. Nia, Cole, I'm sorry." But Cole clearly did not think this was Hawk's fault at all. Magic communication is completely down. There's not been a single trace of any high-level monster, and the whole forest feels like it turned into a maze. No one could have predicted this many strange things happening. So, Captain Hawk, stop blaming yourself. We still have not found a guild master, but there is no need to panic yet. After all, he's one of the top 3 strongest among the leaders of the 8 great guilds. Once we find a way back tomorrow, we can report everything here to the church. Hearing that, Hawk seemed to calm down a little. The guild master's strength is beyond question, of course. But the problem is that he has been missing for a full 2 years. There have always been rumors that our guild was being viewed with suspicion by the church. And just by coincidence, the guild master came here only after accepting a mission personally assigned by the Pope. The guild master they were talking about was Gorn, leader of the 100 Styles Guild. 10 years ago, Guild Master Gorn founded the 100 Styles Guild. Unlike other guilds with their strict entry requirements, the 100 Styles Guild did not care about race, class, or level. As long as someone believed in the guild's core spirit of no bullying, no abuse, and no wickedness, they were welcome to join. More importantly, every time Gorn led a monster hunt, the resources gained were distributed fairly among all members to help everyone grow together. That was exactly why the 100 Styles Guild became famous for its generosity and unity, rising quickly to become one of the 8 great guilds. And precisely because the 100 Styles Guild grew too fast, rumors spread that it had begun drawing the church's suspicion. 2 years ago, Guild Master Gorn simply told them he was heading into the swamp forest for a mission, and after that, there was no word from him ever again. Without the Guild Master's protection, the past 2 years have been brutal. Members were poached away one after another, others drifted off, and the once glorious 100 Styles Guild had now been pushed to the brink. Gorn had once recognized Hawk's talent and given him his chance, so Hawk had formed this team to search for any trace of the Guild Master. In the end, though, only Nia and Cole had answered his call. For that, Hawk felt genuinely grateful to both of them. Hearing that, Nia quickly tried to comfort him. "Do not say that. If Guild Master Gorn had not founded the 100 Styles Guild, someone with a niche class like mine never would have become an adventurer in the first place." Cole responded with a teasing tone. "Really? But with your ability to control mid-level monsters, there are probably plenty of guilds fighting to recruit you now. If anything really happened to Guild Master Gorn, it is not like you would have trouble finding your next home." Nia clearly was not going to let that slide and immediately told Cole to shut up and go to sleep. Seeing that, Cole wisely dropped the subject. All right. Pretend I never said anything." Meanwhile, the protagonist stayed hidden quietly in the grass, listening in on their conversation. Unfortunately, the distance still made it hard to hear everything clearly. Guilds? The church? The slime could not fully make sense of what they were saying, but one thing was obvious to him. Getting world-building information from humans was incredibly important. With that thought, the protagonist quietly stretched part of his body closer, intending to use himself as a living wiretap. But to his surprise, he had barely moved a little closer before Cole noticed him instantly. There is a monster. In the next second, Cole cast Ice Spike, and a huge icicle burst up from the ground and pierced straight through the slime's split body. Worse still, the magical effect kept spreading from that split body toward the protagonist's main body. The moment they heard that, Nia and Hawk both jumped up and went on guard, scanning the area. But Cole remained sprawled on the ground lazily. telling them not to worry because the monster had already been dealt with. Then Little Steelback walked up to the split body and gave a sniff, before crushing both it and the ice spike in one bite. Under that overwhelming pulling force, even this slime's main body was dragged out of the grass by Little Steelback. Just when the protagonist thought he was done for, Nia stopped her pet, Little Steelback, and saved his little fungus life on the spot. She lowered herself slightly and said to Little Steelback, "No pointless killing. This is just a small monster passing by. It is not dangerous, so let go." As she spoke, she scooped the slime into her hand, and the whole mood suddenly turned strangely soft. Nia looked at the slime resting in her palm and felt an odd sense of familiarity, as if she had seen him somewhere before. So she asked gently, "Little monster, would you like to form a monster contract with me?" Hearing that, the protagonist was so moved he nearly melted on the spot. He had no idea why a girl would like a slime in the first place, but at that moment, he honestly felt like she was an angel. He even started wanting to become her pet. Seeing that, Hawk quickly stepped in to persuade her. "Nia, do not mess around with stuff like this. We still have to find a way out tomorrow. This is not the time to collect monsters, and there is no need to waste mana on a low-level monster like a slime." Hearing that, the slime immediately protested. "I am slime mold, not a slime." But to his surprise, they could not hear a word the slime mold was trying to say. Nia simply lowered her hand and gently placed him back on the ground. Then suddenly, the protagonist had an idea. If he could not talk, he could at least use the special properties of his body to make them directly understand what he was trying to say. Under the slightly astonished gazes of the two humans, the slime mold twisted his body and formed the word hello. He honestly thought that would be enough to show them that he was an intelligent life form. Instead, the two of them could not read Chinese at all. They even thought he was taking a dump. And to make it worse, they sincerely praised him for it. After hearing that reaction, the slime mold was completely speechless. At the same time, he fully realized that the people in this world could not understand Chinese. As unwilling as he felt, the protagonist still chose to leave. If he stayed any longer, there was a good chance he would be mistaken for some bizarre monster and killed on spot. At least now, the slime mold had confirmed one important thing. Humans did exist in this world, but their language was completely different. So he left the group behind and returned to the other side of the river, though the terrifying magical owl still lingered in the back of his mind. All he could do was hope he would not run into that thing again. In the very next second, the protagonist's body suddenly jolted, and Central Command activated on its own. The skill made his senses feel like a radar, allowing him to vaguely detect where his split bodies were. This was also the first time the slime mold truly understood what Central Command actually did. And as he moved closer, his perception of the split bodies became clearer and clearer. Before long, a blob of slime mold more than 10 times larger than his main body appeared in front of him. As soon as the slime mold recovered that split body, his HP rapidly restored. His poison resistance rose to level 8, and his overall level climbed to 22. Right after that, the protagonist began searching for the second split body. But suddenly, the signal grew weaker. Then he spotted a familiar figure. That snail had still not finished devouring his split body. Seeing that, the protagonist fired a cytoplasm shot and sent it straight to the afterlife. Looking at the split body trembling beside him, the slime mold's heart almost broke. "Oh, my poor little baby. You have suffered enough. Dad is here to take you home." But just as the protagonist got close to his split body, a long tongue suddenly burst out from the mushroom pile and instantly snatched the split body away. The frog even looked pleased as it savored the taste. Seeing that, the slime mold trembled with rage, because to him, that was no different from watching someone eat his own body right in front of him. In the next second, cytoplasm shot fired again and struck the frog squarely in the head. But to his shock, the frog's tongue was absurdly fast and sensitive. In the final instant, it actually intercepted the attack. Perhaps that blow made the frog realize he was not easy prey, because it immediately turned and leaped into the water. But there was no way the slime mold was about to let it escape that easily. 3 more cytoplasm shots followed right after it. But as he watched the stones sink into the water, the protagonist's frustration surged to the extreme because he realized he really did not have any good way to deal with that creature right now. But right then, the frog suddenly leaped out of the water again. Seeing that, the protagonist was instantly overjoyed. "So you jumped out again? Right, frogs are amphibians and need air. In that case, let's see how you run this time." But to his surprise, the frog had not come up to breathe at all. It had come back to hunt the slime instead. Still, it had clearly underestimated the protagonist's current dodging speed, and instead gave the slime the perfect opening to strike back. The stone smashed into the frog's head and burst into a spray of blood. Meanwhile, the protagonist used the unique properties of his body to pull off something straight out of Spider-Man, hanging himself from a nearby branch to avoid being forced into a passive position again. Feeling the damage to its blinded eye, the frog's rage instantly flared up, and it charged straight at the slime without the slightest concern for defense. Unfortunately, the slime had already run completely out of stones, and the bullets he fired after that only turned into food delivered straight to the enemy. In the next second, the frog stopped directly below the protagonist, and its tongue shot out like a cannon shell. instantly sticking fast to the slime's body. However, while it and the protagonist were locked in that violent tug-of-war, the branch above began to creak under unbearable strain. Before long, the branch had completely reached its limit. Just as the slime was about to be swallowed whole, the protagonist suddenly had a flash of inspiration and violently twisted the branch caught at the end of his body, using that recoil to ram straight through the frog's skull in one brutal strike. Watching the frog's body drop rapidly, crash straight into the water, the slime finally let out a deep breath of relief. However, just as the protagonist was lamenting that he had no way to go underwater and decompose the frog, two eerie lights suddenly appeared beneath the blood-stained surface. In the next instant, some kind of attack blasted away a full third of the slime's body. And the force did not stop there. It even snapped the tree behind him clean in half. Skill, holy fall. Only then did the slime finally understand that this was no ordinary frog at all, but a magical beast frog with an actual skill. The protagonist's eyes filled with shock. What kind of insane thing is this? In the next second, blood seeped from the frog's crystal-like eyes, and they crystallized in midair, unleashing enough force to shatter an entire tree trunk in a single blow. Seeing that, the slime did not hesitate for even a second and immediately went full Spider-Man, fleeing through the forest at top speed. A wise fungus never takes a bad trade. The earlier frog getting swallowed in one bite by the snake stork had clearly made me underestimate this species. Could this really be another case of skill differences between individuals? Just as he was thinking that, the protagonist glanced back, only to realize that the frog had somehow already lunged right up behind him. It turned out that the frog had copied the slime's trick and was using its tongue to move rapidly through the forest. Suddenly, the frog pressed down on its own eyeball, and another bloody whip lashed out. A single strike alone shaved off 199 HP from the protagonist, and the blood carried deadly poison on top of that. Even the slime's level 8 poison resistance could not withstand it. In the next instant, the tongue whip came smashing down at him again. And this time, the protagonist failed to dodge and was hurled straight into the water. At first, he was secretly still feeling smug, thinking that physical attacks did not actually hurt him all that badly. But then a system notification popped up, cellular osmotic pressure imbalance detected. Leave immediately. Before the slime could do anything, the frog lunged forward with its jaws wide open, swallowing the protagonist's entire body in one gulp. But what the frog had not expected was that its teeth could not create a perfect seal, and the slime actually started forcing himself back out little by little through the gaps. Even so, the frog's stomach acid was still dealing continuous damage to the protagonist. In theory, as long as he could launch his main body back out before the frog finished wearing him down, he still had a chance to survive. But the problem was that just forcing the frog's mouth open had already used up almost all of the slime's strength, leaving him unable to split off a new body at all. Then, to make matters worse, the frog actually pressed him right back into its mouth with its hand. Seeing that, the protagonist had no other choice. With the last bit of strength he had left, he forced a small part of his body into the water. As the lake water slowly seeped into that portion of the slime's body, a massive swelling sensation exploded inside the frog's stomach. Once osmotic pressure went out of balance, the slime's body would start absorbing water like crazy, and his size would then increase at an insane rate. But even then, the frog still refused to give up and desperately kept trying to shove the protagonist's body deeper into its mouth. Since things had already come down to a life or death struggle, the slime went all out as well, frantically burning through the honey stored inside his body. In the next instant, the frog's body rapidly twisted and swelled, then exploded on the spot. Right after that, the slime's own body also began expanding at terrifying speed. Notification, monster defeated. EXP gained. Notification, foreign matter decomposed. Antibody acquired. Feeling the sheer size of his body at that moment, the protagonist was honestly a little overwhelmed. Notification, osmotic pressure regulation max acquired. Notification, current HP, 11,870/924. Notification, excess HP will be cleared after 1 hour. It turned out that most of the slime's body was now filled with lake water. And because his size had become so enormous, he now had enough cellular fluid to regulate the changes caused by osmotic pressure. Looking at those 10,000 plus HP that were about to disappear soon, the protagonist immediately realized he had to squeeze every bit of value out of this temporary power-up. After all, this was something the slime had practically emptied his entire savings to achieve. With a body this absurdly huge, the protagonist suddenly came up with a brilliant idea. Remember those games where you roll around and absorb everything into a giant sticky ball? Very soon, a huge number of aquatic magical beasts were decomposed by the slime. Even so, although he had adapted to osmotic pressure, moving in water still came with overwhelming resistance, and the slime found it extremely difficult to move efficiently. Those fish-type magical beasts were also absurdly agile. Sure, the protagonist could still catch some of them by relying on his massive size, but wasting time here simply was not worth it. After thinking it over, the slime decided to head onto land and hunt there instead, wherever his body rolled over. Not even a single blade of grass was left behind. Then two beaver-like magical beasts that had just finished catching fish suddenly appeared in front of the protagonist. The slime even greeted them warmly. "Hello there." In the very next second, both beaver beasts were swallowed whole by this slime. Even so, the protagonist did not actually eat them. He only took the fish they had caught. There were plenty of resources around anyway, so there was no need to kill everything in sight. Cute magical beasts could be spared for now. Maybe that was the last little bit of proof that this slime still carried a human soul inside him. Right after that, a squirrel entered the protagonist's field of view. But unlike those two beaver beasts from before, this thing clearly had some serious offensive power. A few fireballs came blasting over, and if this slime from an hour ago had tried to tank that head-on, he would have most likely been killed instantly. Too bad for the squirrel, though. The current slime was sitting on a terrifying 10,000 HP. In the next second, the squirrel was completely crushed by the protagonist. By the time its figure showed up again, all that remained was a dried skeleton. Elsewhere in the forest, a lizard-like magical beast was suddenly blasted away, and the thing that had sent it flying was actually a bizarre, grotesque tree. Then the giant lizard let out a low, rumbling sound from its throat and slammed its foot hard against the ground. A stream of acid shot straight toward the center of the strange tree. The tree's outer layer rapidly melted away, exposing something hidden inside, a mass that looked very much like a slime. In the next instant, that slime mass shot out and crashed onto another basswood tree. Immediately after that, the basswood began to change and grow. Seeing this, the giant lizard lowered its body into a charging stance, activated Savage Charge, and barreled straight toward the transformed basswood. But the branches moved like flexible spears, constantly intercepting the giant lizard's advance. Suddenly, two branches burst up through the soil and pierced straight through the giant lizard's arms. At the same time, pure white flowers rapidly bloomed from the branches. Yet from the center of each flower sprouted grotesque, fleshy tendrils. The instant the giant lizard locked eyes with the flower cores, bulbous chunks of flesh began swelling inside its eyes. And in the next second, the eyeballs exploded. Even so, the giant lizard's fighting spirit did not diminish in the slightest. Instead, it used that chance to break free from its restraints. Its body was sent flying by sheer momentum. Yet it used the rebound from the ground itself to forcefully stabilize its stance. Skill, thermal sensing. The giant lizard sensed the branches stabbing toward it and immediately leaped into the air. Using the sweep of its tail, it split every branch apart. That leap also allowed the giant lizard to close the distance to the strange tree. And in the very next second, its tail came crashing down, slicing both the tree and the slime inside it clean in half. The slime slowly broke apart and dissolved into black mist. But the giant lizard did not get the victory it expected, because fleshy tendrils began growing again from its shattered eyeballs. And soon after, its skin started turning deathly pale. Then, right at that moment, a massive sphere suddenly appeared within its thermal sensing range. And in the next instant, the giant lizard's entire body was swallowed whole. A system notification appeared. Foreign matter detected. Antibodies activated. The protagonist was instantly filled with confusion. The frog's blood seemed to have had the same thing in it last time too. What exactly was this foreign matter? But the slime quickly shoved that thought aside. Forget it. As long as there are antibodies, that is good enough. What matters now is taking advantage of the little time left and swallowing as much as possible. However, as the slime kept rolling onward, the protagonist gradually started to feel that something was off. Even if he had not rolled across a full 100 acres, he had definitely covered dozens by now. Yet this forest was still absurdly dense, as if it had no end at all. Suddenly, he felt the ground shift ever so slightly. And in the next instant, a beam of light shot straight into the sky. Right after that came the violent shockwave of an explosion. The protagonist froze in disbelief. What? Am I seeing things? Did a giant magic circle just flash across the sky? And that explosion too. Why was there no sound at all? While he was still trying to process it, the slime's body suddenly shrank back down to its original size. And there was no doubt about it. His overpowered rampage time was over, and he had been thrown right back to square one.